So, a little late to the party, but I'm gonna cover a few things in Palworld that you might want to know as a beginner, and a couple mounts that are available early in the game, and just a few general tips that will help you enjoy the game a little more. First thing I'm going to cover is gliding. Some people have already covered this, but there are a few things you should know about gliding. First, how to cancel your glide. Now, this isn't just canceling your glide, obviously. You'll notice that as you're gliding, you start to descend much faster the longer you glide, but if you cancel your glide and restart it, you'll regain all of your forward momentum if you're going forward and cancel your descent. And you can repeat this indefinitely to glide for very long periods of time. Now, this is useful if you want to cover a large distance, or if you want to maintain your current height to glide from one area to another at high altitude. The best glider in the game, the crafted ones, garbage. You don't want those. They are just completely and utterly worthless. This is the best glider you can get, and the descent is terrible, the distance is terrible, just everything about it is awful. And you have to be level 40 or something to craft it. It's not good. The Galeclaw, you can get at 20 or so, 23 I think. And its skills don't really matter. You do need to get it to its max star rank. That increases its gliding speed by 25%, I believe. It might be a flat increase. Usually it's 5% per star grade for whatever the passive skill would be. In this sense, obviously your glide speed. The skills don't really matter, as I said, but I went with player stats because I'm playing on a very, very difficult world that you will die if you don't have player defense, and the other skills don't matter, so I just got the rest of the stats because I could. Now, gliding is just ridiculously overpowered in terms of travel. It is the best mobility you're going to get in the game other than level 50 mounts or very well-bred flyers, maybe. I haven't really messed around with flyers because I just don't need them. And you also have the perk that you can glide while you have a PAL out fighting, despite the fact that you're using all the PAL to glide, which, because of this, if you're in a boss, you can have your PAL fighting the boss while you use your glider to maintain high mobility to get out of attacks, which is very important for some of the tower bosses that will, at least on harder difficulties, one-shot you, so you don't want to get hit by them. And, like, as I'm demonstrating here, the distance you can cover while gliding is pretty ridiculous. There's no need for another map in the game. You got the Galeclaw, you're done. But, if you want a ground mount, that's where the Kitsune comes in. It's decently fast. It has a very good vertical jump. There are better vertical jumps. It's available much sooner than those other mounts, but its jump is very, very useful. You can cover pretty much any terrain you need to other than climbing a straight wall, obviously. But the main perk of the Kitsune is total immunity to heat and cold. Now, I have armor on, obviously, that makes me basically immune. I still freeze to death in the coldest parts of the map, but generally, having this mount just in case you go into a biome that has a different element to what you are set up for. If you're set up for heat, you go into cold, or if you're set up for cold, then you go into heat. It's nice to just have it so you can throw it out and not freeze to death or burn to death. Offensively, it's okay. Like, the strongest skills in the game, it can beat pals that are, or I guess in this case, humans that are slightly lower level than it, but it's not gonna be your go-to for combat. It can do okay. Now, as far as combat pals go, you have access to Anubis and Bushi fairly early on, level 20 or so is where you can, I think it's even before level 20, where you can catch, technically you catch a Bushi, and you catch a Pen King And if you breed those, you can get Anubis. That's the only way to get Anubis other than capturing the boss version, which requires you to be pretty high level and have access to most of the resource management aspects so you can craft the highest level spears. You can technically go and open boxes in the Winter Zone, which if you have the Kitsune, you don't have to worry about armor or anything, you just ride around and open them. The Kitsune also has a high aggro rate, which what that basically means, it's a hidden stat. Certain mounts that you have will cause other pals, the wild ones, to not attack you, they'll run away instead. And the Kitsune's pretty high on that. Most pals won't attack you. So you just free run out and open boxes if you want to. The humans will basically attack any pal they'll never run away, as far as I'm aware. Now, once you get those two pals, which you can catch the boss versions very early on, as I said, you can start breeding Anubis. Anubis is probably the best combat pal other than the max level in-game pals that obviously are going to be better than any other pal. One of the things that a lot of people say is you have to go element. You want to have the same element attacks, you want to get the elemental boost. I don't really see that as being all that important. Like, yes, you're going to do more damage by using stat element boost and by having the Emperor of Earth or whatever the Emperor skill you need for your particular element. But because elemental bonuses are only 20% for using the same element as the PAL, it's not really that important. You're usually going to be better off just by using elements that are strong against the target that you're fighting. And I'm just going to show that here. A relatively weak boss that I can complete quickly. Skill on there. Fire skill's doing thousands. Let's see the earth skill. Yeah. So that is weak. So that's 50% its damage. It would be pretty well even with the fire skill, or with, the fire skills, but the benefit is you get status effects, you can avoid any type resistances, which obviously, if you're going to hit weakness, you're definitely going to be weaker than hitting damage bonuses with the correct element. The other thing to keep in mind is, on element is going to be pretty good. I think my Bushi is set up for the right element, he's not. That's another thing that you'll notice later on. Once you get a shield, you cannot be one-shot. Any attack that would kill you will only break your shield in that round. But, obviously, on element is going to be fairly powerful. Now, the most important thing that Bushi has to his name is, not as much obviously being good for this boss, it's the fact that being fire element, he is totally immune to burn. And burn does percent damage, so your armor or defensive stats don't matter. And it will kill any pal that you have ignited relatively quick. That's part of the reason why mine is set up with water, is because for one of the other bosses, now, you can see the cold instantly killing me. Another benefit to Kitsune, actually I don't know how to mount it, is when it's out, because it is a fire pal, it'll slightly warm you up, so I'm not in the coldest temperature anymore. Any fire pal will do that. As you can see, the damage tick for being in the cold or heat at the highest level will kill you in about 20 seconds or less. Now, as far as breeding goes, for Bushi you can get him as a boss, low level 20 or so, and you just breed them with each other, and perfect skills, perfect IVs, because they're bosses, there's a very high chance that they're going to spawn with one IV stat that's max. You can actually get HP for free if you just enter the boss arena, look at their HP, look at what they should have at max. If they don't have it, leave, walk a few feet away, come back, enter again, and repeat that until you find enough max HP. The other two, it happens. You either get the correct stats or you don't. All of mine are pretty well maxed out on stats with the skills I wanted on them. Not so much the best skills. Obviously, if you're going to go for a pure elemental damage dealer, you want the elemental lord skills, elemental emperors. They're different names, but they give you 20% more damage with your element, which seems to stack in multiplicatively rather than additively. So you can get 75% attack and then get 20% more elemental damage with that element on top of your stab bonus, and you can get really high numbers. The last pal that I'm going to generally cover here is Verdash. This is the highest level one. As far as I'm aware, outside of breeding, which there are a lot of options for breeding it, you can only catch this in the boss arena at level 35, which is pretty far in the game. But it has my favorite skill in the game, movement speed boost. The only movement speed boost for the player in the game, and it's pretty noticeable. It applies to all player movement other than gliding. You'll climb faster. When you jump, you'll actually get a little more distance on your jumps. But for gliding, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to apply. Other than that, the pal is fairly strong. Stat-wise, it's below Bushi, below Anubis, but, it's not bad. And that movement speed just comes into play far more often than the little bit of attack you're going to lose. If you're in a boss, you'll be able to move out of the attacks, which if you're not playing the highest difficulty, that'll be less of an issue. Difficulty in this game is not exactly the most difficult thing. It just raises the damage you take from pals. It's kind of empty. Hopefully they'll add more flavor to that in future updates, but for now, it gives you a little bit of a challenge. You get hit, you die. But other than that, honestly, I would recommend playing on a lower difficulty. And that's another thing I would cover is, this is a co-op game. Solo play, you can have fun, but you're going to have the most fun playing with a group of people. Unfortunately, the live service right now, as of whatever, the 23rd apparently, as of the 23rd, the live servers are just infested with hackers. And unfortunately, it's not just like, oh, we're gonna make high stat pals and haha, look, we can one-shot everything. It's also people that just go around and destroy everyone's base. They have access to console commands, there's no anti-cheat, so for now, you don't want to play on the official servers. It might have gotten a little bit better in the last couple days, but I tried it when I started, and it really ruins the experience. You start to make any progress at all, and then someone just appears next to your base, and your base is gone. So I don't recommend playing on the official servers yet. Hopefully, with the next big update, they're going to add a cheat protection tool of some sort, and hopefully it's not easy cheat, easy anti-cheat, or whatever. The garbage that they used on Rust early on. Hopefully it's something better than that, but for now, you're going to want to play Palworld with friends. Hopefully you have friends. It's a fine game to play along. This is my solo playthrough. I had fun with it, but as soon as I started playing with one of my other friends, I got way more enjoyment out of the game than solo playthroughs. Eventually, you're going to have the stats to one-shot all bosses, even on the hardest difficulty. The tower bosses, you're probably not going to one-shot, at least not on the hardest difficulty, but you just throw your pal out, you let him fight him, and you just fly in circles. There's not a lot to do in the current state of the game. So, with multiplayer, you can actually crank up the rates to ridiculous levels and actually work together to capture high-level pals. There's a lot you can do that you can't do. You can't really do it in single player. Now, PvP is going to be the big deal. I'm a little mixed on it. I don't think this game's actually going to work too well for PvP. I think it's too casual. The stats on the pals are a little weird in the way they calculate. I was breeding for a defensive skill, thinking like, okay, well I take very little damage. If I get the defensive skill, I'll probably take no damage. And then the difference in 20% more defense was nothing. And I went from taking, I think, 20 damage to taking 17 damage, which isn't even the full 20% reduction in that. And as far as the defensive stat went, I gained over 100 defense, and I would have thought that, 100 more defense would result in 100 less damage. They obviously use some sort of log, which basically means offense is the king. You want the biggest possible attack number you can get, or elemental bonuses. That's something hopefully they'll flesh out with future updates, but because of that, PvP for me does not seem like it's going to be that big of a deal. Some people might enjoy it. Generally, I think this is more of a casual, Rust-like game where, you explore, you find something new, you catch it, you breed it to perfect stats for, because you can, and then you throw it at some bosses, and that's sort of what you do. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much incentive to build bases with how quickly they can be destroyed with current pals, or just, the rocket launcher. I just don't see PvP functioning like Rust or Ark, where you can actually have structures that are resilient enough to take a couple hits, and you can have base defenses that are effective enough to defend you. The base defenses now are just significantly worse than a PAL, and like I said, the structure defense, even for these metal structures, the highest we currently have, like, yeah, and I have no offensive bonuses. I have very low player damage because of my server settings, and it takes a couple seconds for the player to break it. When you have PAL structure damage turned on, its entire bases get destroyed in one AoE. So I don't see that translating well to PvP. Beyond that, my last bit of advice would be take the game slow. Monkey Brain says go and get the strongest PAL as soon as possible. That's what you need to do. You're not going to have a fun time doing it. It's not very difficult to do. Obviously, you can cause the pals to jump off cliffs, or you can build stairs and run up the stairs and drop off, and then get them low HP, and then it's just a matter of throwing enough pal spears to catch them. But the funnest part of the game for me, and it seems this way for a lot of people, is the early game. As you're going and, you get a pal, it's pretty good, you start leveling up, and then you find a new one, a better one. So you get rid of that one, you grab a new one, maybe you keep the old one to level up the new one a little bit, and then you swap the new one. And when you're constantly changing the pals you're using and progressing to the next tier of pals, of resources, all that, you actually have a sense of progression. Once I got into the breeding, again, monkey brain, stupid, I liked seeing the numbers get bigger, but it just gets to the point where you're doing the same thing. And if you're breeding for IVs, which is what I was doing, you can go through thousands of breeds before you actually get what you're after. I don't think I actually crossed 1,000. I was, I think, 700 at the highest, and then I had my perfect IVs, I had my perfect skills, etc. Actually, one more thing that I would cover is skill free. Now, other people have already covered the general locations of the trees, which you just go to them every couple hours in-game. You can speed that up if you want. I don't think there's any reason not to speed up, honestly, but besides the skill tree ones, there are a few that haven't been shared for a while. As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen anyone talk about them, but probably the most notable one that I know of is... Actually, there's a closer portal to it. in the desert, in one of the Black Marketeer mine shafts. I think all of the Black Marketeer mine shafts have the same spawns. I'm not sure on that, so I'm just going to this one. It should be respawned by now. But... there is one skill fruit that I've only ever gotten from this chest. I don't really go to the other bounty hunter spawns, but I assume they're all the same. And it's Pow Blast, which is kind of a forgettable skill. It's a normal type beam attack that basically every type, almost every type in the game has a beam attack of its type. This is the normal type of this, so it works neutral on everything. Otherwise, it's basically the same as the other ones. But you can only get it from the chests that will spawn. I bet it is there. These chests right here. And it's a skill. You can also get up to +2 accessories, I believe. It's the same as that boss chest. But you can get Pow Blast there, which I think I'm pretty sure I have it. It's inherited skill, so it's at the top. And basically all the lasers and all of the, almost every 150 skill from what I've seen is just a reskin of this same skill. Which... it's gonna take him a minute to use them, so I just changed them so he's on cooldown.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit wonky. Yeah, those guys work.
Yeah.
He's one of the only pals that, as far as I can tell, will attack any... well, that might kill me, but they'll attack any pal that they can see. So that's the water one.
Oh.
We have another volunteer. I think that's the Pow Blast. Yeah. So that's Pow Blast. It's, you know, it's another beam attack, neutral to all targets, effective against none, so generally you're only going to want to use that one if you're going for a neutral POW base, or you just can't get a beam attack of the element that you want. But other than that, that pretty much covers all of my new player thoughts on the game. So, generally, I'll probably come back and do some more videos when new content drops, but for now, that's it.